What is going on, everybody? Welcome back to Hot Take. Today we are in a cool 1991 Mazda Miata. If you're here from Cars and Bids, hello! We make these videos. If you're a returning viewer of the channel, we're glad to have you with us. Everyone knows the NA Miata. This is the 91 is the third model year. This has the 1.6 liter engine. This particular model is very bare bone, no options. Manual steering, no ABS, no AC. It does have a radio. I mean, it would have had a radio from the factory, but it also has this head unit. Anyway, and no LSD, unfortunately. But we still have 5 Ford manual gears, and we have a lightweight roadster. I think we should go take this thing out on the road and see what it's all about. Oh, that's so much fun in this car. So, initial impressions of the Miata. This is one of the most mechanical cars you can drive. I would call this a modern MG Midget. What I like a lot more about this car as opposed to the MG Midget, though, it communicates to you a lot better. And communicates not as in... So I have Google Maps on. I've got a cool setting me on some good driving roads today, but not communicates to you well as in just giving you feedback, communicating to you well as in it's actually telling you what's happening. I feel in control of the car, not like I'm along for the ride and the car is just kind of making its way along, if that makes sense. So great. I mean, this thing effortlessly shifts into gear, and I'm surprised by how fast the revs drop on it. I mean, I guess it makes sense. There isn't really a lot there, so it doesn't really hold the revs. But I mean, you kind of just throw it into gear and it does its thing. There is a slight throttle stumble, which I've been told is pretty normal on these things. I mean, it was old technology. What are you gonna do? But this thing it communicates to you very nicely. And I did also forget to mention, this car has a Borla muffler. I'll throw a picture up on screen. That's really as far as it goes for mods. And then, of course, the obligatory airbag light, which sometimes flickers.
Then turn right onto Walden Road.
Effortlessly downshift. That one wasn't as good. But you get the idea. This thing is really easy for any driver to pick up. I knew how to drive this car in 30 seconds of hopping into it. Now, I've driven it before, but the first time I drove this car, that was my hot take initial impression. I was just blown away by how easy it was to drive. I mean, there's a reason the Mazda Miata got such a cult following. We'll go for 2. The clutch is also very forgiving. Very easy to operate. And the bike point's very wide. Just very nice. It's very smooth clutch. Easy to use, it's light. Gives you a good level of feedback. There isn't really much I can say about it other than it's just nice to drive. Foot down. Slow down for this guy. Ugh, it's terrible. brakes aren't that bad when you get into them. Obviously, there's no ABS, so you can't fully mat them or you'll lock up your wheels, but they have a good modulation and a good bite to them. Very good steering feedback. Manual steering is really nice. Oh, this downshift is so crisp. So we kind of just went for it with the car there, kind of let you hear everything, how it moves. And it drives so nicely. Oh, we got another really good patch road here. Cool did me a favor. Oh, that feels so fantastic through there, guys. I love that so much. So we established that the driver's communications are really nicely, and not only nice, but very predictable, very linear. You know what's happening in the car. Suspension-wise, the car grips up really well, although Cool has told me that it almost gives you like false positive. It makes you a lot more confident in it than you're supposed to be. That's what he told me. Said on stock suspension, they have a tendency to, the rear end kind of kicks out because you think you have it, you think you're going good, and then it kind of just whips out, which I could kind of see because it is a fair amount of body roll. I mean, I could see how that could snap back on you if you weren't just trying to throw it into a corner or weren't like fully two hands on the wheel, 9.3, driving like you're supposed to be. The flip side of that though is this thing actually rides really nice. Like over bumps, it's not jarring. This thing rides better than my M3 does, which I'm surprised by. The wind noise isn't too bad either. Obviously, it is a two-door roadster that came out in 1989, but I do think that it could be a lot worse for what it is. Very short fifth gear, which is just fun. The gearing in this car is really short, which makes sense. I mean, it doesn't have a lot of horsepower. If you gave it long gearing, I don't think it'd have the torque to keep up with itself. Oh, there you feel body roll. So those types of roads right there is really what the Mazda Miata is good at. Very tight, twisty back roads. And I have to say, this car doesn't have the most horsepower in the world, but it doesn't matter. It makes you feel like a superhero while you're driving it. I mean, you could say that about a lot of cars, but I really haven't driven a car in my life that was as easy and fun to drive as this car. Not only easy and fun, but also just like easy to drive fast. I say put fast in quotes. Fast relative to the performance capabilities of the car. A BMW M3 or any larger sports car, I mean, to drive it fast, you have, excuse me, to drive it fast, there's a lot of skill that's required there, or it's going to become a handful and you're going to lose it. In this car, you do get a kind of a wide berth of safety before you really have to worry about this car giving you any issues. I don't know why these small roadsters have a lot of body roll. I mean, the MG Midget did, the Miata does. It's kind of weird. I mean, I guess that's just how cars were made back in the day. I mean, they had softer suspensions. I mean, they were designed to be driven on the street. I mean, people track these things. They put coilovers on them, poly bushings, right? They do all the go fast mods. And then you have something that's even faster. But honestly, you don't really need all that. I think this is... Oh, that's the dimmer switch. This is plenty. I mean, for a street car, I mean, really the only way to make a Miata fast is a turbo or a supercharger, because NA power on these cars is a waste of time. Now, smiles on an NA motor, I'm not going to say is a waste of time, but actual horsepower, definitely. These things sound nuts with ITBs. I haven't driven one, I'd like to, but I belabor the point. This is a car you buy to have fun with. Speaking of fun, that was to highway speeds. Legal highway speeds. All that. 1, 2, 3, 4. Just over 70 miles an hour. That's the Miata right there. My car, I would be going at 100 easily. That's what's so great about this thing. You can have fun well within the speed limit. And different from the MG, this car is modern enough to not make it feel unlivable. You can get some that have AC. You can get some that have a good radio. You're not dealing with carburetors, really old school 60s, 70s car things. And some Miatas, you have OBD2. And this one, you have OBD1, the start of modern computers. The interior just feels more modern. I mean, obviously, you can tell it isn't modern. It doesn't feel like it's from an entirely different century. I will say the one thing that does kind of suck is the around town power. You have no torque at all. 3500 is like where you need to shift most of the time. But honestly, I'd sometimes caught myself shifting almost as high as 4. Especially if you're fighting oncoming traffic. Because if there's nothing there, I mean, and most cars you can kind of just throw it into 2 and like kind of, you know, speed up a little bit. This thing, no, not at all. You got nothing. Which is also part of its charm. I mean, it means to get the red line it everywhere and have fun with it. This is not a good daily driver. It's just kind of, it's a good fun car. I do want to own a lot of cars, but I think the Miata is a car I could see myself reasonably keeping for a long time because they aren't expensive to own and they're just fun. I mean, this car, when I drive my M3, I have to think about it. I hop in that car and I'm like, oh, the clutch is weird. Oh, you know, the parts are expensive. It takes premium. Oh, this does take premium too, but we'll ignore that. You know, this, that, and the other. I hop in this car, I kind of just slip the clutch however I feel like it, throw it in whatever gear, do whatever I want. Car's happy to take it. Put flat to floor. It does really climb onto the cam. You can tell where it starts to kind of pick up. This doesn't have VVT, but it almost feels like it. You pretty, two grand, you have nothing. 3, start to kind of build some. Once you get to 4, you can feel it start pulling stronger. Once you get to 5, then you're like, ah, there's the power. Oh, like butter. My hot take on the NA Miata. I get the rave for these cars. There's nothing particularly special about an NA Miata. It just does car well. It just has everything right. The shifter feels good. The steering feels good. The suspension communicates you nicely. I bet with all the go fast parts on it, this thing is a real riot. Prices of them have gone up in recent years, and performance for dollar, I will say it's kind of a terrible value. Like, there's a lot more modern equivalents that are better, even newer Miatas that are just better dollar for performance. But if you just want something fun and classic, I mean, the NA Miata, you can't go wrong with it. Now, let's give it a score. Utility. The NA Miata has only 2 seats and not a lot of room for things. It is comfortable enough, but wind noise is certainly prevalent. It gets a 1.5 out of 10. Features. This Miata has almost nothing. Manual steering, no AC, no ABS, crank windows, you get the idea. It gets a 1 out of 10. The EPA rates the NA Miata at 22 city and 28 highway with an average of 24. It gets a 6 out of 10. Cool factor. The NA Miata is cool, but nothing crazy. The stereotype about girls liking them is pretty true. While I wouldn't buy a car to get a woman's attention, if you're going to do it, this would definitely be the car to do it with. It gets 5 out of 10. Driver's feedback. This is pretty close to as good as it gets for a street car. You feel in control of the car, and the driver input's very intuitive. The shifter is especially nice. This is a high point for the car. It gets an 8.5 out of 10. Acceleration. 0 to 60 is well over 8 seconds. It gets 1 out of 10. Should you buy it? The NA Miata is a staple of the automotive hobby, and for good reason. It has everything you'd want in a driver's car except the horsepower. Prices have gone up in recent years, but I still think there's a lot to like for what they are worth. I will give it a 10 out of 15, putting it here on our list. Unsurprisingly, it doesn't score that high. The daily category kills it. That said, it scores where it counts. The NA Miata was the go-to car for many years. In an age of cars getting faster and more technical, there's something to be said about a bare-bone roadster that can still keep up with modern-day traffic. More so than an MG Midget anyway. The Miata is no longer the answer, but since when has that been a bad thing?